Hey guys, well, it has been a really long time since I've checked in, and I've missed you. I think that you were one of the best parts of hiking some of the PCT, and I really missed that. This has been a strange year of COVID precautions and isolation, and there's so many parts of it that I've enjoyed, to be honest, but I do miss community. So the PCT signups are next week, and I know a lot of people are looking excitedly toward hiking again now that the PCT organization has opened up the permits. So I just thought it would be a great time to look back and kind of rehash some of what I learned and some of what surprised me during my own experience. It honestly was one of the best experiences of my entire life. And you might wonder how I can say that when I only hiked a couple of 100 miles and cried in some of my videos or was really down on myself along the way. But I think that's just part of it. You don't really know what you're going to feel or what's going to go through your mind when you're out there. And the biggest step of courage is just getting on the trail and trying it out and doing it. And you don't know how it's going to end. All you know is whether you take that first step. So there are some things that I just want to mention to you that might help if you're looking to hike the first time. So it was glorious. The most beautiful vistas that I've ever seen, and I've been around the world, and just overcoming some of the things that you just don't think that you can get through when you're down and struggling, and then you discover that with enough rest it's always better, and you have some of the most incredible experiences that you've ever had the very next day. So my number one advice, more than anything else, is to forget judgment. So forget judging yourself, because that's way harsher than what you think you might feel when you compare yourself with others. Stop comparing yourself with yourself. So when I was practice hiking, I was going 3 miles an hour without a whole lot of problem. And it was more like a mile an hour on the trail. Miles just seemed to take forever out there. You've got all these switchbacks, and sometimes the ground is unsteady and you've got to pick your way. And I have found that to avoid rattlesnakes, if I tapped my hiking poles, that seemed to help me run into fewer of them. So I picked my way and I went pretty slow, and I really beat myself up about it because I ended up hiking in the middle of the day, which do not do. Just take your hiking umbrella, one of my favorite pieces of equipment, and huddle under it during the worst of the day if you don't have a good tree, and take a break. If you have a little creek, sit beside it and drink some water, but lay down and listen to the water run and stare at the sky and watch the clouds go by. Stop thinking that time is something that you've got to beat, and remember that time is our privilege and it's what we're here to enjoy. So don't race through it, and don't try to hustle so much that you miss the little things. Because honestly, what I look back with such pleasure is, of course, wondering what's around that next bend, and the surprise vistas and the rewards at the top of the climbs. The trees, the magnificent trees. California has such an incredible array of trees. And birds, bird song. I loved camping alone at night. I never felt fear. I just loved something about finding a spot, being exhausted, setting up, and then just being able to collapse in my tent. Sometimes I did that before I put anything away or worried about what to eat or anything like that. I would just lay there and recover. But that was the biggest secret, was that you always recover. If you give yourself enough time to rest, you always feel better and encouraged. And even when, I ran into blisters and things that set me back and sent me to town, I would definitely budget some money for the trail towns, because It's such a relief to just be able to sleep well for a few nights in a row sometimes if your body needs some recovery. But honestly, I could have set up my tent in a decent spot and passed a couple of days that way. You don't have to hike every day, and you don't have to hike far every day. 10 miles a day really is fine. So I didn't end up through hiking, and it's impossible to set out on this adventure without the goal of through hiking. If you think you might be able to achieve that, because you think, well, if I don't set my goal that high, how will I ever achieve it? But I wish that I had realized how much fun 3 or 4 weeks on a trail could be, and how much fun 10 miles a day could be, stopping along the way to enjoy things and film and share the vistas with you and my friends and family. So I really wish that I had sunk in to that leisurely pace a little bit more and seen the value in it for what it was. I will probably do that again. I loved having a few weeks on the trail, even though it was hard every single day. Every single mile was hard for me. I'm no athlete. I just love nature. So there are a couple of things that I wish I had known at the beginning, or that I couldn't have known and that I just know now. And one starts with gut hook. So when I started at the southern border, I realized about a mile in that I didn't really know how to read my gut hook. And so I was kind of winging it. I was hiking blind, and I had not figured out how to identify my exact location on the map and watch as it tracked along with me. So just word to the wise, you will see a little box when you open your screen that says GPS. Hit that, and then you will see something that looks like a target, and click that, and that is what will follow you. That will show you your exact location. And once it knows your exact location, it will also tell you your exact distance to recorded water and campsites and towns. And all of that is vital information. As for water, I found water along the way that was not on gut hook. So there were times when I carried more water than I needed because I didn't realize that I would come across water so soon. So just be aware that water's the most important thing, even more important than food. So don't underestimate, don't undertake it. But I realized a while in that I could take at least a liter less than I was thinking that I needed. Of course, I did get dehydrated. The day that I quit was because of dehydration, and I had water in my bottle. I just was on a rampage across a stretch of desert sand and heat and exhaustion, and I just felt like if I didn't fix my sight on that bridge and get there, that I didn't know how it was going to happen. So I didn't pause to hydrate, and I should have. So there's that. Just be smart about water, and if you've done practice hikes, you'll get a feel for what you need and what you can do with and without. Food. So I explored all of the options about food, whether it was taking a little camp stove or dry soaking or blah, blah, blah. What I ultimately ended up with that I was dumbfoundingly happy with was tuna packs. So I just had the barest food in the morning. I ended up going totally no prep. I ditched everything else, including my Talenti jar for cold soaking, and all I had was breakfast bars, and then at lunch, which was my main meal of the day, I wanted to have my main meal away from camp to avoid critters, and it was a pack of tuna and 2 packs of mayo from Chick-fil-A and tortilla. And I really thought I would get sick of that after a few days, but when you're hungry and you're exhausted and you're just ready for a break and you're looking for a pick-me-up, I looked forward to it every single day. It was exciting to me to get to sit there and have all that food hover over my lap and try to put it together. And at night I was so tired when I laid down that I didn't do a great job of eating dinner. I ate beef jerky. That was my main snack through the day. I had Skittles. That was my sugar pick-me-up. And I had Fireballs. So I'd That became my guilty pleasure. Not the drink, but the candy. So you'll find what the magic combination is for you, but don't over carry food or over plan for food or fear hunger too much. After you break that hunger, you don't really feel that hunger. And with the tuna, I had plenty of protein and my energy seemed okay. So the weight is a really big consideration, and you want to keep your weight down. I ended up abandoning too much weight, thinking that if I could drop from 40 to 15 or 10, that I would just be blissfully happy. And what I found is no matter what you're carrying, eventually it gets heavy, but it's twice as important to be prepared. And you can get stronger, but you can't get warmer if you don't have the right gear. So I had to crawl in with one of my trail family 2 nights because I had ditched my sleeping pad, which was one of my most prized possessions, and my puffy. So I had no real way of being warm enough. I had a 0 rated UGQ underground quilt. Yeah, I think that's right. Sleeping bag, which I loved, but it wasn't enough against the cold ground. Everything that they say is true. So my vitals in the end were my backpack, which I tried a couple, and I really, really liked my circuit, which is ULA. I had a circuit ULA, and then I had an X-Bed winter sleeping pad, so I never ever got cold when I had that. I had thermals to wear at night for pajamas. Sometimes I got a little too warm, but I never got cold when I had that combination with my 0 rated quilt. I never really wore my puffy, so if I had gotten up into the Sierra, had gotten that far, I would have needed it then. But I had a thermal fleece, which was fantastic, and it did the trick. So let's see, those things. Oh, and my umbrella, I wouldn't have lived without it because it really gave me shade when there was no other way to have shade. Not when I was walking, but when I was crouching, when I was sitting and resting. That's when I needed it the most and when I was the most grateful for it. And then I had just a little toss on the ground cover to go under my tent, and that was my brake pad every day. So when I broke to have my lunch, I would throw that on the ground, or I would rest under a tree or whatever. I was always glad to have that little lightweight sheet of, basically Tyvek that I could recline on. So I think those and Fritos are the things that I was the most grateful for. I always kept a Ziploc of Fritos on top of my pack, and that was my salt rejuve and snack as the days went on, and something else that I just really, really looked forward to. So very, very basic stuff. My weight ended up being closer to 20 pounds, probably 22-ish pounds was my realistic have everything I need weight. I got rid of all the bells and whistles, all the stuff that you might have seen on my YouTube channel that I tried out and discovered and loved, but it just didn't make sense to carry extra weight in the long run because I was not really strong enough yet to carry all that and make it up the hills and survive. Let's see, so blisters. I wish that I had known on day one to slather my toes with, you can use anything that slicks your toes. There's so many different products out there that you'll hear about. Body Glide is a great one. Definitely use Body Glide on your thighs and your inner thighs, and even your butt will chafe. So make sure that you have that kind of stuff with you because you'll get really raw and really miserable very fast. I also had something called Peniton cream. So when I did chafe, I could use that cream, and by morning it was completely gone. But my blisters were not. So I didn't know to slick my feet, and I didn't wear my toe socks to start because I started having chafing on the side of my feet. So I ended up getting some pads, some adhesive pads for the sides of my feet. I have a bone that rubs, and slicked my toes and wore my toe socks in gingies. and that solved the blister issue. So that might help some of you out in advance, because that kicked me off trail for one stretch. Snakes, I did see my rattlesnake while I was hiking solo. My very first day, I ended up seeing 3, all solo, and they freaked me out. They didn't make me want to run and hide and quit, but I did not enjoy them, and I didn't like the concern that I might run into more of them alone. Once I joined up with a trail family, that didn't happen anymore. So if you look at my videos, you'll see a definite before and after. I started getting really down on myself before I started hiking with other people, and I don't know if it was the community, just the social society and comfort of having other people to bounce off of, or if my fitness was improving, or a combination of both. But you'll definitely see a lift in my step after I started hiking with Ken and Camille than before. So I really enjoyed them, and they became an integral part of my experience. But I also enjoyed my time alone, and I wouldn't trade those days for anything. I'm really glad that I got to experience that part of doing things alone that I'd never done before. So long distance hiking and carrying entirely my own load, and pitching my own tent, and sleeping alone, and waking up alone, and hitting the trail alone. I'm glad that I had that experience. So I wouldn't trade that. So I wore a skirt throughout. It was great. It had a deep pocket for my phone and for anything else that I might need. It looks really awkward in photos. Part of me wishes that I had switched out to something else, but mostly it was functional when I needed to pee. So I used a pee funnel, and not having to mess with shorts or anything else when you needed to just step off the trail and go was worth wearing a skirt. I had a can of spray sunscreen, so sunburn wasn't an issue. I never felt cold was an issue, because if I was chilly, I could put on my thermals, or else I had rain pants for a while. So never really used my rain jacket. Never really used my rain pants that I can recall. If I did, I took them out once, and then it ended up, because we saw rain in the distance, and then it didn't reach us. So all of that is time of year. Just be prepared for what the season calls for. So let's see. Yeah, I really think that that's kind of what I wanted to cover with you. I'm really happy that my niece got to fly out to California and join me for a short section of the trail, and that I got to introduce her to just doing something out of her comfort zone, and something that very few people do, and even fewer did in 2020. I'm grateful to my trail family, and to the other hikers that I met along the way, and to the trail angels especially. They were as close to true angels as you can possibly imagine, always in the right place at the right time, with just the right amount of cheer and comfort. So, so grateful to each of them. And the trail towns were fun. I wouldn't have skipped any of that. To not skip any of that means you have to be willing to slow down a little bit and experience it, not just survive it. So that's my best advice, is to smell those roses and smile at those cacti, and just, take your time and enjoy the experience. You don't know how long it will or won't last, and you want to make sure that it's a great experience either way. So good to see you guys. I really have missed you, and I hope some of you are still around. Say hi if you are, and keep in touch. You might even see me on the trail every now and then. Bye. So this is my hiking outfit that finally made the cut. This is my Purple Rain hiking skirt, my Dirty Girl gaiters, my Ultra Trail shoes, darn tough socks. I was wearing Injinjis, which I love, but I have a displaced bone on the side of my foot. It could have become a big problem. I hadn't anticipated that, and it started to rub. So I think the thicker socks are helping. It's my Light AF fanny pack, my OR hiking gloves, my Montbell dry fit shirt, my Badassery in Progress buff, my Ombres sunglasses, bra and underwear, and of course, my hat. Hello lunch and lots of calories. So this will probably come as a shock to you guys after the exuberant live feed this morning, but I'm done.
bopping along.